we have remuneration committee. So that's the other name for the compensation committee, remuneration committee or compensation committee. Annual report should include a list of members of the committee. The chairman and the executive board decides the compensation of non-executive directors. Some duties and responsibilities of this committee includes determine specific compensation packages for each executive director. So we've explained this much earlier. The executive directors, their compensation will be determined by the remuneration committee. Make recommendations to the board regarding the executive's compensation framework. All right. So when it comes to these big guys, it's not just really about the salary, but the other things that goes with that. Okay. Sometimes they link their bonuses to say share price increases, sometimes all manner of things. So the committee must find out whether the framework for determining the compensation and remuneration of CEOs are actually rational and reasonable. Okay. Then we have the nomination committee, composed primarily of independent non-executive directors. So you see that the key committees, most of them should not include the executive directors because they are there to check the activities of the executives. So when it comes to even nomination, that is the case. Okay. It is composed primarily of independent non-executive directors. The chair of the committee may be the CEO of the firm or a non-executive independent director. So when it comes to this, it is possible that the CEO can chair because as we will see, there are instances where the nominations will be about people that will be working with the CEO. Okay. But if the nomination is about the CEO himself, say a replacement or a succession for the CEO, somebody to succeed the CEO, then the CEO shouldn't be part of the committee. Okay. So we need to get that clear. There are instances where it's about appointment of another executive that will be working with the CEO. In those instances, the CEO should naturally be part. But if it is about the replacement process of replacing the CEO, then the CEO shouldn't be part because he has a way of influence or he may influence those decisions. Okay. The chairman should not chair the nomination committee when it is considering the appointment of chairmanship replacement. All right. So that is the idea here. Leads the process for board appointments and makes recommendations to the board. So nomination committee will also lead the process for board appointment, who, based on the qualifications they have, should be considered to be part of the board of the company. Okay. Then we have the risk management committee. Risk management committee makes sure that directors are aware of their responsibility for the company's internal controls. Very, very important. So they pay attention to internal controls because that is all about risks. Once you don't take good care of the internal controls that you have, people will abuse the systems that we have and cause a lot of havoc for the company. Okay, so it has close relationship with, say, audit, but risk management makes sure that these controls are present. Audit probably will make sure that these controls are working, but their relationship is quite close. All right. So risk management, to avoid all manner of risks, you need risk management committee to ensure that all internal controls and risk management systems are functioning effectively. Okay. So as you might have seen so far, the non-executive directors play a very important role. These are the people who are not part of the executives of the company. So they are a key component of effective governance. They act as a check on or counterbalance to executive directors. They contribute to the company's overall management and growth. And according to the Calbury report, this is an important report on corporate governance. Such directors should be chosen with the same objectivity and care as top executives. Okay. So the non-executive shouldn't just be people. I think we've discussed that in this morning. That will just come and be saying yes, 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 who do not really know their left from right. They are normally very competent, independent-minded people that will provide very good suggestions. Okay. So how independent should the non-executive directors be? Situations where non-executive director independence will be questioned. So in order to ensure that the non-executive director is actually independent, we need to be looking at these variables. Okay. Where the director was a former employee of the company or group within the last 5 years. So if you were a employee of the company within the last 5 years, you cannot be considered as being independent director, non-executive director, even though you presently you are not with the company, but you shouldn't be considered as an independent non-executive director. All right. Where additional remuneration apart from director's fee was received from the company. Okay. Once the company have a way of compensating or giving you money beside the director's fee, what it means is that your independence might have been compromised. That is why you're receiving additional remuneration. So you cannot be classified as an independent director, a non-executive director. All right. Where the director had a close family ties with companies, other directors, and advisors. So this one is very tricky. Okay. You might not have any family member in the company, but if you have family ties with some of the directors' family members, close members, then it is by extension, some of the directors are your family members. Okay. Then you cannot be considered as an independent non-executive director. Okay. Where he or she had served on the board for more than 10 years. So if you have looked at the practice, I think later on you'll be presenting on that. There will normally be a way of they retiring and coming back again and so on and so forth. It's meant to serve this condition. So normally you have, say, 2 years, renewable for another 2 years. After that, you will see notice that this director has resigned. Okay. They'll resign for a year or two before they come back again as directors. The idea is for you not to continually serve for 10 years. All right. The logic is that you become too familiar with the executives, and so you will not be able to put them on check as much as possible. And also, if you were doing some bad things as a director, you can continue with that route for as long as 10 years. Okay. So to be an independent director, you shouldn't be on the board for more than 10 years. All right. Next point, where he or she had a material business relationship with a company in the last 3 years. So, for example, if you have been, say, a supplier of some material to the company, then you have a business relationship with the company. Okay. If you have a substantial investment in the company, whether by way of equity or debt, then you have a material business relationship. Okay. So we are not talking about just some 2 or 3 shares, but if you have a huge investment in that company, what it means is that you are not really independent. You have real interest, business relationship with the company. Okay. Yes. Then the last point clarifies what I was trying to say. Where he or she represents represented a significant shareholder. So you might be the shareholder or you represented a significant shareholder. Then you cannot be classified as an independent non-executive director. Okay. I hope we are clear with this point. Are we fine?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes, bro.
Good. So in appointing, all of this is meant to ensure that you get people that will be objective-minded, independent-minded to give you critical suggestions as to how the business or the company should be run. Okay, so let's look at their contributions, the contribution of non-executive directors. They add value from number of facets, such as the experience they have in the industry, their public life. So generally, they come with a lot of value. And as we said, sometimes some companies even go for popular people that necessarily do not have any knowledge in the industry. That could be risky. But the point we're trying to make here is that they also bring some value to a company based on their public life and their experience in the industry. Okay. So some have knowledge of a particular functional area, right? When we're talking about the committees, when we mention audit, we could pinpoint to a professionals that could function well there. When we mentioned compensation or remuneration, we could pinpoint. Okay, so these people should have some functional expertise. Either it's banking, finance, marketing, accounting, law, or something of that sort that they bring on board to provide their professional advice in these particular areas. All right. They tend to have knowledge of particular technical process or system. So it's similar to the other one. All right. So if you're dealing with IT, and IT is a significant part of what the company does, then obviously you need somebody with those expertise on your board to be able to provide the technical directions as to how things are supposed to be done. Okay. They bring reputation to the company. And I think somebody mentioned it much earlier. All right. Some, as we kept saying, some investors will even go to the names in the board of directors list before they decide to invest. Once they find a particular name, they conclude that then this company should be properly managed. All right. Yes. Okay. Then we have ability to have insight into issues and ask searching or probing questions. That's what these non-executive directors are supposed to be in the first place. Okay. So you must have insight, knowledge, and you must not be afraid to ask probing questions or searching questions. Don't forget why you are there. You are there because you have to protect the interest of shareholders that cannot be part of the meeting. Okay, so if things are not going right and you can't ask questions to get answers that are satisfactory, then you have no business being on the board in the first place. Okay, so if you just go there and be saying yes sir, or lack the confidence to ask questions that are supposed to be asked, then you have no business going on to company boards. All right, don't just go there for the money, because as you said, it also comes with consequences. All right. And I always advise my students generally. So you want to be careful about board appointments. Okay. Yeah, political ones really not so much. They will do their usual politics there, even when you steal money or something of that sort, right? But the private sector, in terms of real companies, you want to do double cross-checking before you accept the role of a director. Be particularly mindful of these CEOs and new companies that are coming up. Okay, most of the guys are just not correct. Let me put it mildly. All right, they may just be looking for your credentials to get through with whatever they want to do. So don't just look at the reward. Be very, very much particular about the price that you have to pay if things go wrong in the company. So yes, it could be rewarding, but it's equally very risky. So you want to be very careful. And if you accept to be also, don't just go and be rubber stamping and agreeing to everything that the CEO says. Okay? You have to be independent minded, because you have to know why you are there, to make sure that the interests of those that you are representing is properly protected. Okay. Then we have what is known as director evaluation. I think I spoke about it much earlier. So the board itself must evaluate how they are operating to find out whether they are adding any value to the company at all. Okay. So we have dimensions of evaluating directors. You can do evaluation of the whole board or the board as a whole to find out together as a board, what kind of impact are we making on the company? Then you can do evaluation of the individual directors of the company. Okay. Yes. So it might be possible the entire board is doing very well, but there might be some individual directors that are just riding on others. Okay. So you want to find out, is everybody actually adding something to the functions of the board? And that will help you to know who you should let go as far as the growth of the company is concerned, in terms of the directors that you need to help you grow your company. Okay. So there is a room for director evaluation to make sure that directors perform well. Within the context of that, you also have to have succession planning. All right. I've realized that most of the difficulty most of these companies have is to actually get people with the knowledge and the experience. Okay. Yeah, if you come to academia, maybe a lot of us may have the knowledge, but you don't have the experience when it comes to the practice of business. If you go to practice also, you may find just few people, and they may not also even have the knowledge, and so on and so forth. So succession planning and getting real qualified people to be on board is very, very difficult. Okay. So you have to be thinking, if your even executive directors are about to retire, one is about to resign, you always have to be thinking about who will take over next. If your board of directors, don't forget we said they cannot continue for more than 10 years. If they have to leave, who are those that should come and replace the directors? So succession planning is a key component in good corporate governance. You don't want to leave a vacuum where you'll be taken by surprise, all right? That you don't have anybody, your CEO is gone, the company doesn't have any CEO, or your directors have resigned and you don't have people to replace them. Okay. Then we have board diversity. I think I've kept mentioning this over and over again. So board diversity looks at the board composition in terms of gender, nationality, ethnic background, and so on and so forth. All right. So it's coming from the word diversity. You don't just want to have a board that consists of only people of a particular kind. For example, you have a board made up of only accountants. All right. Because the shareholder is also an accountant. So all your board members are accountants. Okay. You don't want to have a board of only marketers. You don't want a board of only people with law background or lawyers, and so on and so forth. You don't want a board of only males or only females. So the categorization could be very different in terms of the composition, depending upon the industry and where you find yourself. All right. So the new trend is an advocacy for board diversity. If you remember our sociological theory of corporate governance, that is where this advocacy is coming from. All right. Don't just have people of a particular kind on your board. It's still false. Okay, so we'll be looking at the advantages. All right. If you have people that are only male, they can only think like males, right? Recently, I think somebody shared a funny story where I think it was this sanitary pad issue or something of that sort, something that is only about female. And yet the board, I think it was a research team, yes, on campus. A research team was doing something on, I think, sanitary pad or something of that sort. And the research team consisted of only men, right? Female. So I think they got some results in the course of the presentation. The first question was about the composition of the research team. Why they didn't include female on the research team. Because all things being equal, you cannot really appreciate things about women than women themselves. All right. So that is where the logic and argument is coming from, that you need representation of people of different background, so that you can get a very rich and good board to help in the growth of the business. Okay. But there are costs. So there are advantages. Let's look at the advantages first. So it could promote creativity and different perspectives, right? Because you have people with different backgrounds, different orientations, they are likely to bring a lot of creativity on board because they'll be thinking differently. And that's how creativity is promoted. It could lead to access to resources and connections. All right. So because they see you not to, maybe just to take political parties, for example, right? NPP is known more to be Akan group and stuff like that. Akan political party and so on and so forth. So people with expertise, once they don't identify themselves as Akan, no matter their knowledge and expertise, they have the higher tendency of joining the NDC. And I'm just using general perceptions as we have it in Ghana, all right, than joining the NPP, because all things being equal, they feel they may have a better chance in terms of appointments and so on and so forth in NDC than NPP. Okay, I'm just using that to represent companies or organizations. Okay, so you realize that if NDC was a company, they may feel more comfortable tapping into various resources across the country than NDC could have that advantage over NPP because they almost embrace every tribe. And so they will be able to tap into the knowledge and expertise from every corner, okay? Compared to NPP, where the perception is that it is an Akan party. And so the tendency is that they may be able to access people with only that kind of lineage or how do you call it? From such tribal backgrounds and so on and so forth, all right? So if you bring it to the context of a company with diverse boards will be able to access resources, knowledge, and expertise from different people because your board is not tribalistic or is gender biased or something biased. You can tap expertise from different areas, all right? Career incentives. So it's closely related to the earlier one. Okay, so if people see that your board is not tailored towards just one ethnic group, or not just, I'm struggling with an example that will fit perfectly, all right? So if they realize that anybody at all has advantage by looking at the board, the nature and composition of the board, then they are encouraged to either join the company or to work harder for the company because they know that this company is a company that values diversity, okay? They won't say, they also take a look at the board and realize that it's only people of a particular tribe that are on this board, or it is only females that are on this board, it is only males and I'm a female, then the chances of me progressing in these companies is difficult, okay? Because all things being equal, all males will be making decisions that are likely to favor males. All females may be making decisions that will favor females. Okay, I'm just using this hypothetically for you to understand that point. All right. Public relations, very, very important also. How the public will view a company that have a board of just one particular tribe or one particular sex, all the other examples of one geographical location, that doesn't speak well. In fact, even with, I think Chelsea, right? When Michael Essien was there, almost all Ghanaians became Chelsea supporters, okay? And I can imagine all the top players in Africa, wherever they find themselves, it is very likely that most of the nationals would then turn favorably towards them. Okay, so it got to a time, Man U, for example, had a lot of support from Asia. All right, because they had some Asian stars. What's the name of that guy? Is it Song? They had a player.
Park. I think his name is Park. Park Jin-soo.
Good. That's fine. Okay, so their support base actually went to the roof. in Asia just because of that one player. Okay, so public relations wise, it helps. Investor relations wise, because as I said, the investors are also looking at all the things that we're talking about. And legitimacy wise, to get acceptance in society, it is very, very important that you promote diversity. You don't just follow one particular whatever group. In fact, part of diversity discussion is to cater for people with disabilities or special needs on your boards, all right? Because when it gets to that point, you need somebody who feels for them or like them to be able to make reasonable contributions to the discussions. So board diversity is a major issue that is being pushed now when it comes to corporate governance discussions. Okay, but it is not all rosy. It is not all advantageous, all right? It comes with a cost. First, it could breed conflict, all right? Because people are coming from different backgrounds, geographical areas, and so on and so forth. They are likely not to be thinking the same way, and that can lead to conflict. Similar to that, it could lead to lack of cooperation because they see things differently. Insufficient communication because they are different people. They will not communicate well compared to if they were members of the same team. Okay, for example, if they were all lawyers, they will be able to talk more among themselves because they'll be talking law. All right, but if you bring an accountant, marketing person, law person, what really will they be talking about if there is nothing really on paper for them to concretely communicate on? So insufficient communication. Conflicts of interest could come up when they are not of the same group. Everybody will be pushing for their angle, all right, because they are there thinking they are representing a particular group, a tribe, and this time the tribe is not ethnic tribe. I'm talking about the group you are representing, okay? So the next point is very similar, agenda pushing, all right? He's there with an agenda because he's pushing for the people that he thinks he's representing, okay? Then it could lead to choosing directors with inadequate qualifications, all right? So merely because they said females should be part of the board, even when you don't have a qualified female, you necessarily have to find a female to be on the board of the company. So that's an example that I'm trying to use, okay? Or yes, you need somebody with special needs. All the people that you found were not qualified. They don't have knowledge in the area. But in order to just show that you have a diverse board, you allow such person to be on the board of the company. So you see that the contribution of the person will actually be zero, all right? And that all sends me back to the earlier point that I raised about the woman that I read somewhere that she has linguistic background or something and was on the board of Bank of Ghana, all right? So I've read people questioning her expertise. Why is she on the board of Bank of Ghana? So I don't know. I'm just using that. I don't know whether indeed she doesn't have expertise. If she doesn't, then probably it might be coming from the fact that the Bank of Ghana simply wants to portray to the world that they have a diverse board, all right? It could also be that she has some other influence somewhere, even though she doesn't have any finance or knowledge in economics and things like that, okay? So there could be other considerations. But if there are no legitimate considerations, then that becomes an example of the last point that we're trying to explain, where you merely want to show that your board is diverse, and therefore you are tempted to even appoint people that may not have any qualifications onto the board, okay? So as experts or consultants in corporate governance, these are some action lists or guide for deciding board composition. So you need to consider the ratio and number of executive and non-executive directors. At all points, you need to make sure that the non-executives exceed the executives, all right? Sometimes most issues will end up in the form of votes. And the executive, if they are more than you, what it means is that they will always get to do what they want to do. Okay, so that ratio should guide you in your board composition. Then consider the energy, experience, knowledge, skill, and personal attributes of current and prospective directors. Very, very important. Okay, so the energy level, so very important. If you have most of them aging, what it means is that they cannot take the rigorous challenge of board meetings, sitting for long hours, and so on and so forth. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't have old people. It should be a blend, a mix of the old and the young. So you want to consider that. Okay, so energy and experience goes hand in hand. You want to be mindful of the knowledge, the skill, the personal attributes too, very, very important. Okay, there are people that might be very knowledgeable, but they cannot just fit in a team or group. All right, they come and they'll fight with everybody. So besides all the experience, knowledge, skill, it is important to know about the personal attributes, right? You might have such a person at your workplace, all right? He fights with everybody without a cause. He's just like that. He just loves to fight. Okay, so such persons are not people you may want on your board, even though they might have the knowledge, expertise, and all that. Just because they are of their personal attributes, you want to avoid such persons as much as you can. And the last point is also buttresses that. Consider the cohesion, dynamic tension, and diversity of the board and its leadership by the chairman. All right. So you need the cohesion of a board, not a board that's the chairman will be struggling to deal with because there is no any form of unity. And unity doesn't mean agreeing to everything, right? Like there should be, how do you call it? Reasonable kind of interaction among members of the team. Okay, not always going there with tensions and fighting and all that. No, there should be mature people and be able to relate with themselves well. All right. So the personal attributes once again comes in. Don't just appoint anybody at all onto the board of the company. Okay, his trait and his attitude matters as much as the knowledge and the expertise that the person will have.